Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is August 30th, 2024, and we are looking at Bitcoin yet again. We're going to follow up with where we left off on Wednesday's video. We're also going to talk about the monthly because we do have the monthly closing at the end of Bitcoin's daily candle today. Bitcoin's ahead of me by a day. It's living in the future on August 31st. I'm recording this, of course, on August 30th, but we do have the Saturday candle open already. And that does mean when it closes, coming into Sunday, we have a monthly close open. So, we will talk about that and what I'd like to see and kind of what the look is right now on price for the monthly. And we aren't going to get into it till Monday, but we're going to talk about why September is very important because September, at the end of September, we close a quarterly candle. So we'll talk a little bit more Monday about what I want to see. But for over the weekend, we have the naked price chart here. What would I like to see? Well, I'd like to see Bitcoin actually put in a low on a close, but we do have off of the big downtrend here. We had the lower high and then the trend break. So we had the lower high coming in at 62.8 with the close coming in at around 61.8. Here at 61.7. But we do have a lot of spikes in and around 61.8. So primary resistance there was 61.8 to 62.8. We had the swing down to around 56,120, and the close here at 57,550. This was not a closing low structure. It was not a higher low structure other than in terms of higher low as it relates to the lower low over here, but it was swing downtrend structure here. We didn't have any closing lows. It was just a pure downtrend here on a swing basis. We didn't close a low, and in this case, a higher low swing and a closing higher low until we closed the Wednesday, the 21st candle here. Then, of course, that closing low did just get tested the past couple of days, this essentially since Tuesday. And we even saw the Friday candle swing down below it ever so slightly. Now, this is so close that I would actually call this equal low structure from a trend standpoint, only if we see a low formed here on a closing basis and Bitcoin does not push below the current low at 57,700. If it is going to put in a closing low and set this swing low, I need to see closes at minimum for the closing low back above 61,200. And realistically, sorry, talking a lot this week, my voice is starting to go, but realistically, I kind of need to see a little bit further up. I need to see 61.8 closed above, which is essentially where the close open came in and where all of these swing highs are. Then above there, I'd be looking for a retest of 62.8 and then this $65,000 high. So while it would set a technical low on a closing basis above 61,200, I still need to see 61.8 and then, of course, 62.8 to be closed above on the daily to really be excited about retesting this high at $65,000. Swings up that don't close, above those levels. For instance, a swing up on the daily that doesn't close above 62,800, I'd likely be looking for a lower high, to be quite honest. But in this case, got to give it a chance. I would like to see the bulls hold this area at minimum over the weekend coming into the monthly close. And I will say I want to see them holding above $59,000. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the monthly here. But, in order to maintain trend, we got to see a low set at 61,200. And then to continue the uptrend, we need to see closes back above $65,000. We'll talk about support and resistance from there, but essentially we need to see equal lows here. That's quite honestly what the bulls need right now. So this ignore the green, but in terms of swing, we've got essentially this structure going on for some of the more longer term time frame people on time frames above the daily. But if we were to look at this as its actual swing candle to candle, we would be looking at it kind of like this. So we got swing high, swing lower low, or swing higher or low, potentially on a swing, lower high, lower low. And then we got this little bit of a lower high, higher low, higher high, and actually apologize, that's one over, and then essentially equal lows, because you see that this is right around this. It's $100 lower, but I would call it equal lows with potentially we could see a higher low close that then needs to go take out this high at that $65,000 and then get our uptrend away from here and get the bulls out of trouble because right now, they're not looking confident. But sorry, but they're not out of the game yet. So, that's from a structural standpoint, they're not out of the game yet. But they certainly haven't been inspiring confidence during the middle and back half of this week. That's for sure. Let's go ahead and turn on support and resistance and define some criteria in addition to the trend-based criteria. So we'll take a look at accumulation distribution, and you'll see that Bitcoin is in that same no man's land that we've called out before a few times between major daily support and resistance areas. And closes in the lower term timeframes back above 60,300 would start to look good to at least try to set or try to run for this Thursday high at 61,200. Then potentially if we start seeing the daily close above there, we can, if we haven't already seen price push up to the 61.8 level, I'm going to call it 61.8, but it's kind of all over the place between the close at 61.7 and the wicks here that kind of fall in the middle to 62.8. So 61.8 to 62.8 essentially would be the next big area that I would look for price to run to if it hadn't already. Above there, I would look for some initial resistance maybe in the lower term timeframes at $63,800 to $64,000 at the bottom side of these opens here near the high. Then above there, I'd look for $65,000 to get run again by the first top, which was the first top from 2021, was at $65,000 on that first run up before a big drawdown into reaccumulation, and then we saw the all-time high at $69K. Now, of course, above $65,000, I'd be looking up to $65,500 to $67,272. Now, if you're not sure why these levels are so important, I will discuss them again in Monday's video, but I would reference you back to Wednesday's video if you're not sure why this. Well, I can just tell you, I guess, really quick. It's the first major downtrending high, and then another big area is the first of the first big downtrend, and then another big area is the first major downtrending high of the second downtrend, and this would be the first major high of the third downtrend. I mean, technically, no, I'm sorry. This is the first major high of the third downtrend here, and we would need to see that broken above and not hold as primary resistance to then even go check that and then test up further 65.5 to 67.272. I'm very specific about that because it's been a key pivot for support and resistance. Above there, I'm looking to run the highs, somewhere around $68,000 to $70,000. Anywhere above there, 70 to 72, and then the all-time high and higher. I doubt that that's going to happen over the weekend, but you never know. Crazier things have happened in the past. But above the all-time high, I will just tell you, I'm looking 73 to 75 is the zone, 75 to 78, 78 to 80, mid to low 80s from there. Probably a front run around 90, and then possibly to $100,000. If the bulls give up the downside here, any closes back below 58.4, it's going to run its current low side structure on the swing basis at that 57.7. Any lower than that, by the way, that's right around this closing structure at 57.550. I would look for that to get hit and lower to the bottom side of the risk zone around the top side of the danger zone here. It's actually the same at 55.850. That's this low. And that is the closing low of the prior second downtrend of this entire range here. And anywhere below there, I'm looking for that wick low of that second major prior downtrend at 53.5 into $53,000 is fair game at target one. Anywhere below there, and technically target one, all of target one between $53,000 and $50,000, and even the wick low at $49,000, which was the all-time high, is fair game. All-time high? I said all-time high. ETF high is what I meant to say. Jeez, all-time high. The ETF high is what got spiked on this move down at 49,941 or so, almost to a T. Realistically, if Bitcoin starts breaking down from the danger zone at 53.5, it's only the wick to fill out locally, which encompasses basically all of target one as a zone. And that wick is fair game, right, for liquidity purposes. Anywhere below there, I'm looking for target two of distribution between that 49 and 45 to 45.5 or so. It could even pass through that zone to electrical costs, which we're going to update in just a second here. Was at 44,120. I think this might have stepped down again. The network was looking a little less competitive today, so we'll update that and then come back to it on Monday, of course. Now, I do need to call this out because I am seeing the electrical cost trek down. This is going to bring up target 3 of distribution if it continues down as a potential. Please don't take this as a given. This is a potential that if Bitcoin was in a daily downtrend, started to get into these distribution zones and then try for reaccumulation, we'd likely see the network be less competitive in terms of hash rate and hash power. So we would likely see electrical costs drop a bit more, probably somewhere around my target 3 of distribution. This is an area between 42,550 and 38.5, which is a big monthly zone. So it's not something that I'm going to get into too much today. I don't think that's going to be happening before Monday. If it did, that'd be crazy. And even if it did happen before Monday, at worst, I'd be looking for price to play around some of these areas around electrical costs. So likely hitting either electrical cost directly, wherever that updates to here in just a second. But maybe into some of the other areas down below. That would be like worst case scenario, some kind of major crash, some kind of large liquidity event. Now you notice I'm saying liquidity event, not liquidation event. With a liquidity event, we would likely see a liquidation event, but for derivative contracts. But yeah, not my first take on what I think would happen over the weekend, but weirder things have happened. It's a long weekend, so. All right. What do I want to say about that? Oh yeah, we need to check on electrical cost. Now I use Caprioli Investments. It's the closest to the metrics we get for our miners, for those that mine. I'm sure that it's pretty close. It's within the margin of error. And I'm stalling because I am going to tell you that you should shield your eyes if it is dark by you, because this chart is blindingly white. So 3, 2, 1, here we go. All right, we've got, it actually stepped down again. Okay, yeah, it did. So 43,788 is going to be the electrical cost floor there. And, at worst, even in, the March of 2020 crash, where did it go? It spiked electrical costs. So, I wouldn't be looking for too much more. So, what did I say? 743,788. Yeah, that's good enough. So 788. Oops. 43,788. There we go. So yeah, it's kind of in no man's land between big support and resistance areas on higher term timeframes. We'll talk about this more on Monday after the September open. So, but in this case, that's pretty much done and dusted for support and resistance here. We can get rid of that and we can move on to, well, actually, no, we should keep that on because we want to see the confluent areas for volatility, which, by the way, I do this more for you guys as watchers. I trust my eyes with volatility, that it's usually, I just look left. You have to excuse my son downstairs having a blast with something down there. But this is more just, and it looks a little convoluted when I throw the bands on here, and that's not actually the bands. That's a different indicator that is already going to be represented in the pane view down below, and that is the Stoke. In this case, you can see that the for volatility levels, the lower first is right there at 58,400. Any closes below there, you can see that the lower second is right around the bottom side of the risk zone, top side of the danger zone here at that 55,850. So, from a closing standpoint, or even intraday, if Bitcoin starts to drop this area at 58,400, we're looking for, again, that 57 700 and lower down to, from a volatility standpoint, the lower second, which is right around a support area. So on the daily, at least for 55,850. If it was lost, we'd be looking at expansion into the danger zone. Of course, anywhere below 55,850, we're looking to around that 53.5 to 53K at the top side of that that major target one of distribution, possibly more, because this is, expansion into a compression here. So realistically, closes below the lower second that fail that 55,850. It's going to start to look like expansion through the levels, and we just take it level by level on the lower term timeframes as it relates to these daily levels. To the upside, you can see the basis band has been acting as resistance after being lost back here on Tuesday, and that's coming nearly directly in line with this low side structure, which was the first higher low shift, trend shift off of the first major downtrend here. Also finding support there in the second major downtrend. So this is a key area at that 60,200 to 300. Specifically, that basis band, which is a 20 simple moving average, is essentially lining up directly with that area. So if it's recovered, again, we're looking local. Upper first is right around 62,000, a little bit over at 62.2. So, again, we're looking right to the top side here, 61.8 to 62.8. If we see any daily closes above the upper first, then we're looking to the upper second, which just happens to be the top side of the recover zone. Right around 63 to 64K. Above there, we're looking for the highs, 65 to the upper third, again, lining up with that pivot zone. If we do see closes above the upper second, I not only would price likely already be running that pivot zone at 65.5 to 67,272, but I'd be looking for a bit of expansion up into this zone, possibly even above it. If it can regain that 67,272 on a closing basis, then I'd be looking at 68 to 70. Try to run the equal closing highs up here, because that was two closes right at like 68,200 or something, with the wick high or higher high here at $70,000. So this entire high structure would be fair game. Of course, above there, we're looking for the highs and higher, essentially. Nothing too crazy here. So we'll take that off. Actually, we'll leave the Bollinger Bands on. Now we'll take off the accumulation distribution daily zones. And let's go ahead and look at momentum. So daily momentum, this is a regular Stoke. We do have a ADX DMI here. You don't really need to, strength of trend and basically your trend, right? Your directional momentum and then your average directional index. So, which is your strength of trend. Or some people call it advanced decline because it's volatility based essentially, but it's all the same stuff. This is not really needed I've gotten a few questions about it now. Like, wait, can you tell us about that? Like, it's not really needed. Like, we covered everything. It's just extra bells and whistles that are built into this particular indicator. You can get an indicator in the indicators tab up here that has Stoke pivots. This is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. So it's measuring close over close price action, not the velocity of RSI. And you can see that essentially the pivot right now on the daily is 63,600, so it's right around the top side of that resistance at 63.8. And I'd be looking for Bitcoin to really just try to hold its structure sideways here and get a nice momentum reset. So basically let the momentum indicator run it out, go sideways, start at least setting the low, and then we can start looking for this to turn itself around coming into maybe the first week of September. Barring any kind of volatile moves over the weekend to the downside. So nothing too crazy there in terms of RSI, which is another momentum-based indicator. The scale midline is important. We've got the edge of the bearish control zone down here. And then we've got the edge of the bearish bullish control zone up here. In this case, is there potential for any bullish divergence? No. So scale midline, at least cursory look. Yeah, because it's lower low wick, higher low close. Maybe on the closing basis. Did it get lower? No, it didn't. Essentially, even if it did throw a bullish divergence there, it's not anything too crazy. It was On a closing basis, there's nothing. On a wick basis, you're going to see people calling it out. But yeah, there's really nothing to be had there. 60,771 is where the scale midline is. The signal line is basically at $61,000. That's a 12-period moving average. We have the bullish control zone is at 66,500 up here. And if Bitcoin started to make its way up there without running directly to the edge of the bullish control zone, then we're likely going to see that in like the $67,000 area if it does head up. To the downside, the bearish control zone is important to understand where it is. And that happens to be right around that kind of the longer term time frame swing low at 56,100. This is coming in at 56,200. It's like 100 or 200. The bearish control zone, or the edge of it, is at 56,132. So that is essentially this low right here. Let me just look at it again. Yeah, it's 56,120. So yeah, it's basically bang on the bearish control zone. So Bitcoin does have a chance, even if it goes into the risk zone that we were just referring to earlier. But you don't want to see that around the close of the month, to be quite honest with you. I didn't like the way CME closed, but we're gonna ignore that until Monday. Let's go ahead and look at the monthly time frame real quick here. So here's what I want to see with essentially the candle that's open for Bitcoin right now, as it is currently the Saturday candle that's open. I want to see it closing above the monthly upper first. I don't want to see it closing below. I know that if Bitcoin's around here and it doesn't pump over the next, 20 hours, like in a really drastic way, we're likely going to see a close open on the monthly that has the upper first being, passing price. But I don't want to see it breaking down in the current month's upper first. It's going to pass it either way to the upside, as we see that there is still expansion going on. We even actually went back into compression. So we have the lower first, and I think if we zoom out, actually, yeah, lower second zooming up too. Interesting. This is actually lining up much like I had said, I don't know, at the bear market lows. That I think we're in a much bigger structure than many suspect, between these highs down here and these highs over here and this low down here. I think it's just a big sideways consolidation, and we might even see it recompress and then re-expand to the upside. But in this case, 59,100, I need to see that area closed above. Bitcoin's currently trading above it right now. That upper first. From a volatility standpoint, and just about every time we've lost the upper first on the monthly, Bitcoin has come down to the basis directly. I am expecting this basis to be somewhere around the bear market lower high at like 45 to 45.5 here by the close open, or it's going to be somewhere likely around electrical cost. And quite frankly, this is moving up at a pace of it was $40,000. It's at around $2,000 at this pace. So another $2,000 would be $44,000 essentially, almost 44,400. That would put it, above the current electrical cost basis, or right around it at 43,788. And then of course we have a major level that we would like to see. It was resistance. It did act as a bit of support in the lower term timeframes here, but essentially 45.5 to that 48.240 high. So we do want to see that area hold. And I mentioned this in a few streams that I was in, Spaces events. Bitcoin's still in higher low structure on the monthlies. And I just want to point this out for some of the newer people. Essentially from a swing basis, and this is green, but either way, it doesn't really matter. From a swing basis, we had some structure that was being built here, and then we have the last, we had the downtrend. We had the trend break above this lower swing high on the monthly, and oh God, I just goofed that all up. Oh no, oh no. Some of the tools are not being my friend, but essentially what we have here is we have the break of this swing high, so swing low to swing high. Once we saw Bitcoin break it, we saw it hold it here. So this was higher high structure on a swing basis. Then a higher low here that's coming in around $25,000 with the close just above it on the monthly there at 26. And then, we've got essentially, higher low structure. The last higher lows at $25,000 to $26,000. I would look for higher lows to come in either here, right, at this $49,000 area, which spiked the ETF high over here from January. But, it's either here or it dips down a little bit lower, and then we go up, right? So that's what I'd be looking for. Structurally, the monthly's fine, even if it just starts to reaccumulate, in the lower term timeframes. Now, one of the dangers would be is that it goes into kind of a Mickey Mouse pattern at the highs here, where it pushes up, fails to break out here, and then takes out this $49,000 low, or if there is a lower low before a move up, takes out wherever that lower low comes in. But essentially, nothing is concerning about this monthly as it stands right now, other than, if you wanted it to pump sooner rather than later, probably sitting on your hands, where we've all been bored and waiting, myself included. Something a little bit more concerning is we're getting some confluent signals that, on the monthly, that things could potentially head for further downside. It's not a guarantee, but it is a confluent signal falling out of the bullish control zone here. Now, yes, this is a much bigger structure. Maybe I should go over to the index for this so that you can get a look at a little bit more history. It's starting out extremely high in the RSI, and then over time it's coming down. Anybody that tells you that this is bad and it's always got to continue like this, I'm going to talk a little bit more on Monday about why that's BS. It's a normalization. When you have assets listed, very volatile, and then the volatility cools down, so do all the indicators. So, and at some point it's going to turn around or come down and get some kind of equal low structure for RSIs, and we already saw that from 15 to 18. So RSI is normalized. We didn't hit some of the same levels, and you're going to get meme trend lines all over the place in terms of RSI. I would say that that's likely going to remain capped for a long time, but that doesn't mean much for price relative to it, because if Bitcoin can actually close back inside of the bullish control zone here, that'd be above 60,500 essentially, back above the simple moving average, which is the confluent signal for further downside, or at minimum some sideways price action. Then we're looking at, that's 61,251. And just for context, back inside the bullish control zone, even if it was going to make a lower high on RSI again at around the extreme read here, the bull critical zone, not bear critical zone. The bull critical zone is at $152,000 up here. So that's not the yellow line. That is the 85 read right now. If Bitcoin was going to come down substantially and test, like, let's say the midline, which it would not be a great look. Guess where that lines up? almost $43,000. So again, confluent with right where electrical costs currently coming in. This is going to update at the end of today, though. We can also see that we have a downside signal. I expect I expect a bullish reset on this. So the not this month, but I would be looking for a bullish reset of a stock momentum indicator like this. 71,311 is the pivot. I doubt in the next 24 hours we're going to see it close above there, but we'll talk about what it updates to on Monday as well, and we'll kind of go from there. That's going to do it for me today. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. And with all that being said, 90 out. Take care. Have a great weekend, and enjoy the long weekend.